What if the reason you can't focus is because you care too much? What if the very thing holding you back from entering flow state isn't the lack of motivation or discipline, but the simple fact that your brain is busy giving a fuck about everything? You care about what people might say. You care about the end results before you even start. But here's the irony, the more you care about everything, the less you're able to fully immerse yourself in anything. And that's exactly what kills your flow. Now imagine someone who seems to move through chaos with complete ease. Someone who steps into a battlefield not just unfazed but almost bored. He jokes, he plays, and still he dominates. There's something different about him, and yet he operates at a level so far above the rest, it almost feels unfair. And that someone is Gojo Satoru. But don't mistake his attitude for arrogance. What makes Gojo so powerful isn't just his technique but also his mindset. It's the way he only gives a fuck about the things that truly matter, and that's what allows him to enter flow on command. So in this video we are going to break down 3 ways that shows that not giving a fuck doesn't hold you back but actually unlocks your flow state. So let's get started. It silences the mental noise. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to concentrate when your mind just won't shut up? You sit down to work on something and before you even begin, your brain is already talking. What if this sucks? What will people think? What if I fail? That endless internal noise is what kills flow more than anything else. Not your lack of skill, not your laziness, it's the noise. This is where not giving a F changes everything. When you truly stop caring about how you will be perceived or whether anything turns out perfect, you cut that noise in half. And I don't mean a fake version of caring like I'll pretend I'm confident kind, but the real detachment. The kind where you decide that your focus is more important than your fear. The kind where you no longer argue with your brain every 2 minutes. That's when the mental clutter starts to disappear and your mind calms down enough for focus to take over. And no one shows this better than Gojo Satoru during the Shibuya incident arc. In that moment, he is surrounded by Jogo, Hanami, Choso, Mahito and an army of curses trying to take him down. He doesn't panic, he doesn't waste time overthinking or overcaring. Instead, he enters a state of absolute clarity, untouched and focused. So what does he do? He opens his domain expansion for exactly 0.2 seconds. Now here's the part many fans miss. He didn't use that 0.2 seconds to kill everyone. That would have been reckless and inefficient. Instead, he used it to stun and disorient every enemy in the vicinity, roughly 1,000 curses. Then he closed the domain, and only after that he used the next 5 minutes to calmly eliminate every curse one by one with precision. No chaos, no rush, just pure undisturbed flow. But Gojo could do that because his mind was completely quiet. There was no room in his head for what if I mess up or what will the higher ups say. He just didn't give a fuck, not about politics, not about perceptions, only about what needs to be done right now. As a result, his focus was not scattered, it was crisp. Now how does this translate to real life? Imagine you're starting your first YouTube channel, but instead of doing it, you are consumed by thoughts like, what if I mess up? What if I stutter? What if nobody watches? That's the noise and that's the enemy. But what if you handled it like Gojo? What if you say that I'm not giving a fuck about how I sound or whether everyone claps for me or even if it flops. I am doing this because it matters to me. That's it. Suddenly your brain gets quieter. You don't hesitate before each sentence. You speak, you execute, and what follows is flow. Not because you forced it, but because you created a space for it. Therefore, learning to not give a fuck is not about becoming careless. It's about learning what deserves your care. It's about realizing that fear, judgment, and comparison are distractions dressed as logic. Let them go, and your mind will finally have enough clarity to do what it was designed to. You can't enter the flow with a noisy mind, and you can't quiet the mind if you're constantly feeding it fear. So if you want to work like Gojo, then you need to start where he did. Care about what matters and stop giving a fuck about what doesn't. Next up, it frees you from perfectionism. There's this idea most people carry around that to do something great you have to do it perfectly, that every move you make has to be calculated, flawless and polished. But here's the truth we often forget, and that is perfectionism kills flow. And what's worse, it tricks you into thinking that you are making progress when in reality you are just stalling. You are stuck in your head, doubting and hesitating instead of actually doing something. And why does this happen? Because perfectionism is rooted in fear. Fear of messing up, fear of not being good enough, fear of what people will think. It's that little voice that keeps whispering, this isn't ready, or you are not ready. But fear only grows when you give too many fucks. When you get too concerned with how it will be seen, whether it will be applauded or criticized, you lose touch with the present moment and you stop flowing. Now think about Gojo in season 2 during his rematch with Toji. This was the same man who almost killed him earlier. Gojo was lying there, bleeding out, face down in the dirt, and yet he comes back. Not just physically, but also mentally reborn. He doesn't return with the fear of making another mistake. Instead, he taps into something deeper. He just lets go. Gojo uses the reverse curse technique for the first time, not out of some planned strategy, but because he stopped holding back. He let his instincts and experience take over, and when he finally unleashes the hollow purple, it's not a perfectly calculated move from a textbook. It's messy, raw, improvised, but it's right. It comes from a place of complete immersion where he isn't worrying about the past, the consequences, or how powerful he looks. He is just in the moment, and that's what makes it powerful. That's the flow. And he gets there by not being perfect, but by not giving a about being perfect. You see, flow doesn't come from overthinking your way into greatness. It comes when you stop overcaring. And when you do that, when you actually stop worrying about being perfect, you unlock the ability to simply begin and allow the rhythm to take you where it's meant to go. Let's bring this down to something more real. Imagine you love cooking, but you have never shown anyone your creations. You scroll through social media and every dish you see looks like it belongs on MasterChef. So you hesitate, you think, what if mine doesn't look good enough? You spend hours trying to play things perfectly, looking up tutorials and maybe even giving up halfway through. But now imagine this, one day you say, screw it. You stop trying to make it look perfect. You stop caring if someone will laugh or criticize, and you just cook because you enjoy cooking. The sizzle, the smell, the heat, the timing, it all pulls you in. And before you even realize, you are fully immersed. You are in the flow. And that's when your food starts to taste better. Not because of some perfect technique, but because it has you in it. This is exactly what Steven Pressfield talks about in his book The War of Art. He describes the battle between the creative self and the voice he refers to as the resistance. Resistance is perfectionism in disguise. It's that force that keeps you polishing, hesitating and hiding. But the way to beat resistance is to show up messy, raw and real. To not give a fuck about whether it's good enough, but to simply begin. And once you start, flow takes over. Next up, it recalibrates what deserves your energy. Let me tell you something that most people never realize, and that is you only have a limited number of to give in a day. Seriously, every time you check your phone, reply to that annoying message, stress about a comment someone left, or even overthink what shirt to wear, you are spending energy. Your attention leaks out bit by bit. By the time you sit down to do the thing that actually matters to you, you are already mentally exhausted. You haven't even started, but it feels like you have already done too much. This is where the idea of not giving a becomes powerful. Not in a cold, emotionless way, but in a strategic one. You are not being careless when you stop caring about things that don't actually move your life forward. Instead, you're being careful with your energy and you're recalibrating what deserves your attention and what doesn't. You can't achieve flow state if your energy is scattered. You get there when your energy is pointed. And you know who does this perfectly? Gojo Satoru. There's a scene early on in Jujutsu Kaisen where Gojo is talking to the higher-ups at Jujutsu headquarters. They are all about protocols, traditions, orders, which are basically politics. But Gojo, he doesn't give a damn. He stands there casually, throws around playful sarcasm and even mocks them to their face. Not because he's trying to be rebellious for fun, but because he understands something they don't, and that is his energy is sacred. Gojo doesn't waste his emotional bandwidth on things he can't control. He doesn't argue for the sake of appearing right. He doesn't bend to traditions that don't serve a purpose. Instead, he saves his mental energy for the fights that matter, for protecting his students, for defeating curses, or for strategizing in battles where real lives are at stake. He appears relaxed on the surface, but under the cool exterior is a razor-sharp clarity. He knows exactly what deserves his energy. That's why when he steps into a fight, he is untouchable, not just in skill, but in focus. He is in complete flow. You don't see him second-guessing, looking around or hesitating. And that's because he's not carrying a mental baggage from earlier distractions. He has preserved his energy so that he can give it all in the moment that counts. And that's the part people miss. They think they need to grind harder to reach flow, but the truth is, you don't need to push more, you just need to waste less. Let me give you a real world example to make this clearer. Let's say there is a guy who's trying to learn how to code because he wants to become a developer and work remotely. He gets home from work at 6 p.m. In theory, he has a good 2 to 3 hours every evening to dedicate to learning, but instead, here's what happens. He opens Instagram and scrolls for 20 minutes. He replies to WhatsApp messages from people he doesn't even like. Then he opens his learning platform. But halfway through the lesson, he checks YouTube and ends up on some drama video and finally gives up, telling himself he's too tired today. He didn't run a marathon. He didn't have to fight a special great curse. But emotionally and mentally, he is drained. Why? Because he gave a fuck about everything that didn't matter, and now he has nothing left for what actually does. Compare that to someone who protects their energy. They mute unnecessary group chats, they don't open social media during deep hour works, they plan their learning time like it's sacred, and because they haven't exhausted their energy on noise, when it's time to code, they lock in. 10 minutes in and they are in it. That is flow. And there's this idea in Essentialism by Greg McKeown, a book I deeply recommend, where he says that you can do anything but not everything. And that's exactly what recalibration is all about. You have to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You only get so much of deep focus in a day, maybe 2 or 4 hours if you're lucky. So if you spend it worrying about opinions, checking notifications, or overthinking your every move, you are done before you even begin. Instead, imagine treating your focus like Gojo treats his energy. He doesn't use it until he decides it's important, and once it does, he goes all in. And that's his flow. So the next time you find yourself mentally exhausted before you even start the task that matters, ask yourself, where did I waste my energy today? Did it deserve it? And did it help me get closer to what I care about? Not giving a fuck is not about being lazy, it's about being selective. And that selectiveness is what creates the space, the clarity, and the fuel for you to enter the flow state. In conclusion, unlocking your flow state isn't about grinding harder, rather it's about clearing mental clutter. And the fastest way to do that is by learning to not give a fuck about things that don't deserve your focus. Like Gojo, when you stop chasing approval and start protecting your energy, you become more present, more powerful, and more in control. This mindset isn't just a mood, it's a method. So if you want to tap into deep focus, creative flow, and high performance, start by letting go. That's where the real shift begins. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.